Please wait, please wait, please wait, until I get my new car. Please wait, until I find my real size. I'm gonna give me some love, so bad. My girl.
Welcome to the Citi Business Edition here on 97.3 Citi FM. And today we're talking to a Ghanaian engineer and storyteller who combines technical knowledge with a compelling narrative style. Of course, over a decade and a half working in some of the world's best technology companies, including but not limited to Amazon, Microsoft, Netflix. Trained here in Ghana and comes back to town every now and again to connect with the motherland. My guest is Charles Wartemberg. Hello, Charles.
Thank you, Sir Bernard.
Great to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful, hot day in Ghana, and there's nothing like being back home.
Engineer and storyteller is not a very common sort of description to give, because engineering types are typically very structured. Storytelling is more sort of spontaneous and creative. How do you get both words in your bio?
Absolutely, that's a fantastic question. So, like you mentioned, engineer is quite rigid and structured. Mm-hmm. I'm an engineer who accidentally fell into a marketing job, product marketing to be specific. And I had to learn things like value prop and marketing and pitch and all the marketing stuff. And I realized that structure is what gets you the job. You need a CV, you need to apply, you need to have some formal stuff. But once you get into the job, what I realized in my experiences, storytelling is what helps you grow. And when you say storytelling, everybody thinks of being a child and once upon a time. So let me demystify what I mean by storytelling. Storytelling is using a narrative to get your point across. Okay. So you and I are telling a story right now. Earnings report Wall Street, they're telling a story. In Q1, this is what happened. And a story can also be as fun and silly as, I love you, good morning. So storytelling is a narrative that, you think about human beings around a fire at night talking to each other. It's an emotional thing. So I like to kind of dub myself as an engineer and a storyteller because I mix the structure and also mix the storytelling to kind of bring my point across.
I like the quote, structure gets you the job and storytelling brings you the growth. So let's talk about engineering. What kind of engineer are you and how did you get into engineering?
I actually have a very funny story. So like you mentioned, I'm a Ghanaian, born and raised, who grew up in Ghana. Okay, I'll say that. So I went to Northridge.
Northridge Lyceum.
Yes, in Northridge, and I went to the school. I won't describe the school, but anyone who is listening will know what the school is, and it is not per se. It is the school in Cape Coast. And when I went to uni, as a good African.
For the uninitiated, that's infantry school, by the way.
The Great Kwaboche, Hill Kwaboche. Anyone listening who is a Kwaboche fan, class of 04, stand up.
Dreams you can.
Amen.
Go ahead.
So I get to university and like a good African kid, you can do anything you want so far as you're a lawyer, doctor, engineer. And I'm like, I don't like law. I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. And I kid you not, I did a process of elimination. I looked at all the engineering degrees and I said, which one can I manage, which one will kill me? I started chemical, too hard.
Are you serious?
Oh, environmental. I don't like to go and touch rocks outside.
No.
Civil. My dad is a civil engineer.
Okay.
He worked at AESL and TSC in Ghana.
Okay.
I was like, I like what Daddy does, but I want to do something different.
Okay.
So I ended up doing mechanical, which is how like systems, operate and move together.
Okay.
It sounded interesting. So I did engineering. But here's the catch. By year 3, I realized I do not want to be an engineer.
Oh, Lord.
So here I am, having done all this engineering school, all this math. And I realized I don't want to be an engineer. And in all the engineering projects, you do a project work, you do a PowerPoint, you do focus groups. And I really like that stuff. Once again, storytelling. So I said, you know what? Let me pick up an economics minor along the way.
All right.
I went to econ class. It was so easy. I was like, this is fun. And I said, you know what? After school, I'll go and get a business degree because that's what people do who don't want to do engineering. So I did engineering because I wanted to be a good African kid. But halfway, I realized I just want a degree, but I don't want to go and build any bridge or road or structure. But I like the way it helped me think in very structured terms, taking a big problem, breaking it apart into chunks, working on them in series or in parallel. So I'd say that's the benefit of the engineering degree. Fast forward, being a technology leader and a product manager, I work with all sorts of people. I work with designers, engineers, data scientists, communicators, lawyers. But to double down on engineers, when I work with my engineering team, I have some credibility because I'm an engineer by training. And I dabble, I build apps here and there, so I can talk to them in their language. So I'd say that background and experience,
it's a solid
really helps
foundation
me talk to my engineering team, and also kind of structure and break down problems in a way that you can solve them for the maximum impact.
Let's come back to Infancy Pen, because my mates who went there, they said even if you did science, there were opportunities to do some sort of technical stuff in addition. So when I interviewed Kwabena Edubuahin, he actually did a combination of the two, which is helping him where he works now. Just talk a bit about a Ghanaian Kwabochi education or general secondary education, because there's a whole conversation about the quality of education we have here and how you're able to cope with, because the uni you went to was a pretty good one as a fresh person.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it very real. I was in S4, which was science and technical drawing, and I think that was one of the best combinations, because in primary school in Ghana, in JSS, you do TD. So being able to take my TD set from GSS Northridge to boarding school was helpful. And what I love about TD was that it forced you to take the world, compress it, and look at it in a 2D or 3D manner. And sometimes you do a dissection and look at it. So it kind of starts teaching your brain how to think in a spatial manner. And I think that kind of TD, you can't rush TD. You have to be very gentle. I think it's a fantastic intro into engineering. So I think that TD and science combination. So fast rewind. I don't like bio. I did pre-SSS. I did a bio class at Mr. Ano. I failed. I've never failed a class in my life. So I said, I'm not going to do bio. So I did S4, which is TD. And that really set me up with that engineering fundamentals. So I would say that science education with TD is fantastic. What I'd love to see more from universities, SSS schools, is this kind of mix of fusion. Because right now, you finish JSS, you apply, you get into science or arts or TD or home econs, and you're kind of set into the narrow path. Imagine a future whereby, yes, you're doing science, but you have one optional class, one elective you can pick. You can say, I want to pick geography, I want to pick history, I want to pick econs. That way, you come out of SSS being a bit more well-rounded, having that elective class that you can opt into. I think that would be a really clever way of still adhering to the course you're given, but giving you a chance to kind of like freestyle or double on like one additional class.
I don't like buzzwords, but there's a lot of hype around STEM. Some call it STEAM. And when people watch NSMQ, they say, look, there's a whole STEM revolution going on. I'm not really sure if wanting to win a science quiz is the same as getting the youth interested in STEM. But what is your view of the way Ghanaian students have rallied around this quiz and what we can use it to do to build our next generation of, whether it's engineers or scientists or mathematicians or whatever?
Fantastic. Every year, group chats blow up in the States when science quiz is happening. And sometimes that school in blue that keeps winning championships is always trolling us. But I would say, my humble opinion, the science and math quiz is a representation of school culture. When you finish university, SSS, it's a way that people can have school pride about the science quiz. There are very few activities or venues that bring alumni and current students together. So I think the science quiz is kind of showing that there's something we can scratch, something we can kind of do and develop there more. I do think a society of just engineers or scientists is going to be a very boring society. Let's be frank. I was an engineer. I did engineering. We're not the most fun people. However, a society with scientists, with arts, with culture, becomes more rich. In every advanced civilized society, people start enjoying the arts, ballet, culture, nature, all these things that really give you that 360 view. So I would say, when I think about science and tech and STEAM, I'll give an example. So I married into a family where my mother-in-law is a professor. My father-in-law has a master's. These are all scientists. Their oldest daughter, my wife, is an artist.
As an artist?
I kid you not, she draws. She draws, she paints, she sews, she can do everything. Jack of all trades.
Wow.
And for me, I'm so impressed with my mother-in-law, professor, because she allowed her daughter to do arts, or to do arts. But in our typical Ghanaian society,
engineer,
you want to
doctor,
say exactly
lawyer.
So I think there's this space whereby, growing up, you see these professions are the ones that can make money. But now in this digital era, you see the creativity you're seeing on social media. There's a new category of career called TikTok influence, all these things. These are all creative kind of arts and spaces. So I think when you think about education, we should focus on critical thinking, design thinking, just the foundation blocks that help you to thrive, because the careers that our parents grew up doing will no longer exist. And let me repeat it again. Some of the careers our parents grew up doing will no longer exist. In this era of AI, rewind. When I was growing up, when I was in GSS, there was something called a comm center. You go and use computer, internet cafe, you go and browse. And on cafe, you go, because everybody has the internet in their pocket.
Yep.
So there are things, before there was typists, all those things have gone.
Yeah.
They've been replaced by something else. So it is my firm belief that some of these old school jobs you are seeing will not exist. Some of them will also be modified. So when you are thinking about educating the next generation, it's not about these hard concepts about what are the foundation blocks, what is, understanding science, understanding arts, history, culture, so that you are well-rounded, and then you can create your own path. I'm somebody who studied engineering, went and got an MBA. I've had a fantastic career working in technology companies, and it's because of these foundations that I had and this curiosity. I'm always reading. I'm always trying to learn random things. I'm a big sci-fi nerd. I love history. So when I'm doing these things, like I tell my teams at work that, when you're building a feature, this is the emotion I want to see from the feature. It's a very strange word to say, the emotion. I can tell people I want this feature to make you feel happy, to make you feel safe, secure. My design team takes that emotion I shared and builds it into the experience. And when you use it, you can feel it. And we can talk more about that.
This is the Citi Business Edition. My guest is Charles Wartemberg. He's Ghanaian. The name is, I think it's an Elmina name.
Yes.
So
County Confederation.
Proper Ghanaian name. But what impresses me, he did his basic education here, secondary education here, went to Tufts to do his engineering, did an MBA afterwards. But some of the companies on your CV are pretty impressive. Amazon, Microsoft, Netflix. These are behemoths.
Yes, it is all by grace. A lot of hard work, by the grace of God. Coming out of grad school, I went to work in oil and gas, because back then all my buddies were working at Exxon and Shell and traveling, and I wanted to work for a big international company that had global reach. So I applied to all four. All four rejected me. On the way, I applied to Amazon and Microsoft, and they both accepted me. So my first job in tech accidentally was at Amazon, and I moved from Chicago to Seattle, where I have been for the last 10 years. And when you're in Seattle, it's a very interesting place. So for those who don't know, Seattle is home to companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Boeing, T-Mobile, and big shots like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates all live on the same waterfront street. It's a very interesting city. And what is interesting about it is that when you live in those cities, having a job at Microsoft, Amazon is normal. But when you take a step back, it's not normal. America is over 300 million people. Microsoft has about 160,000 employees around the world. So to get a job at Microsoft is pretty hard. Yes. And it's like 0 point something %. But when you're in that kind of ecosystem, it feels normal. And what is the point I'm trying to make here? When you see it, you can believe it and you can be it. Growing up, I never imagined I had this run. It's just by the grace of God.
I wanted to pitch on something you said. When you said a lot of your friends want to work with the oil companies. So in 2010, when you check the world's most valuable companies, Walmart, Shell, ExxonMobil, BP, Toyota. So basically extractives or retail or automobile. If you ask the same question in 2020, you're seeing Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet. So the question to you is, what is it about these companies? Is it just the fact that we are in a global transition into the fourth industrial revolution that's brought these companies up? Or are these the companies that have driven it? Because it's almost like now a proper solid company that brings value has to be tech, as against 20 years ago when it was more in the extractives.
I mean, if you look at the fourth industrial revolution, the first couple were like mechanized, electricity. The third was digital. So, early, Microsoft and stuff. And now with the fourth industrial revolution, this is like all automated and like intelligent self-learning, decision making. So there's this really interesting confluence. But to answer your question, I'd say in the first and third, this extractive kind of manufacturing agro were the big boys, to say. And right now it's shifting because with technology, it scales. Meaning you write the code once, you can use it 1 million times, and the marginal cost is 0. But ExxonMobil cannot go and drill 1,000 wells in a year. There's a fixed amount of wells they can drill per year based off the supply available. So I think I think Amazon says it best. It's like an infinite shelf of anything you want. And internet economics are one of the best kind of economics out there. So that's why I've seen these companies kind of scale. But also, every company starts doing something and then scales into something. Amazon started selling books. Now they do cloud service space. They have Alexa in most homes. Microsoft started off with a mission of a computer and a PC on every desk in every home. And right now they are like in, businesses, clouds everywhere. So they start with one thing. Then obviously to continue to grow to justify your earnings valuation, you keep expanding. But as you're expanding, because you have kind of the capital and the heft, you can move into adjacent spaces very easily. So it creates a cycle of the big getting bigger. But what I kind of like about America is, the government is also actively looking at it. When you get too big, they say, hey boss, slow down. This thing, no go. Or this company, you can buy this company. And it also allows the young companies to also kind of grow.
I like that. We'll take a breather on that. Your point around the innovation of these companies that do very well, but also smart regulation that sets the rules. We're talking to a Ghanaian engineer and storyteller who's worked with all the world's best tech companies. He's in Ghana regularly to inspire young people and to do some projects. We caught up with him on the Business Edition to just talk about all the nice things: STEAM, Fourth Industrial Revolution, AI, and the rest of it. We'll be right back.
Love somebody, no, I have to say please wait until I get my new car. Please wait until I find my real side. I'm gonna get me some love somebody.
Welcome back to the Citi Business Edition. Today I'm talking to Charles Wartemberg. He's a Ghanaian. Is it Wartemberg or Waterberg?
Wartemberg. Lots of but I go by Wartemberg.
Originally from Elmina, Kwabuche trained, went to Tufts, and then the rest is history, as they say. And we're just talking about the way some of the world's most valuable companies think and how they work. So we have Amazon, we have Microsoft. I read a very funny book called The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Yes,
they
Scott Galloway, yes.
My God. He said Microsoft, Facebook, Google, and Amazon. Of course, his point was that they were growing very big, and at the time he didn't think they were being regulated well enough. But he already made a point about smart regulation. So explain how this works. Companies start with innovation, possibly from research institutions and universities, giving them the knowledge. Then they make a business case from their invention. They make a lot of money. So, and government comes in to sort of set the rules. How does that triangle work? Explain what's the optimum relationship to make that benefit everybody?
Yeah, I mean, in a fully capitalist society, it's a very beautiful thing. You think about, so let's use the story of Microsoft. So, Bill Gates and Bill Gates and his co-partner Paul Allen have an idea to make Microsoft. They get it off and started. It keeps growing leaps and bounds. It becomes a publicly traded company. And I think one of the key things, a publicly traded company means you are selling shares of the company to the public, meaning it's going to outlive you. So Microsoft is now 50 years old. Bill Gates is the chairman, no longer involved with Microsoft anymore. And I think that's also ways companies live and grow for a long time. And then companies that keep growing use their balance sheet and innovation to expand into other areas. So for example, Microsoft starts with PCs. They win PCs. They go to the internet era, the third industrial revolution. They do a browser called Internet Explorer. It is winning. There's a new company called Netscape that is trying to come up. Microsoft leverages their heft and their distribution to put Internet Explorer for free on every computer. You think that's smart business strategy? But in the United States, the government is always looking at competition, and they want to make sure that the big guys are not getting too big. Exactly.
Yeah, antitrust.
And the benefit of when you get too big and you win, they tell you, boss, you got to slow down. So whatever you do that can be seen as anti-competitive, the government will regulate you. And I'll say through that kind of action, Microsoft or Netscape gets a chance to grow, And Microsoft also gets a bit more like, pause. Once again, these are my personal views.
Of course.
And then, companies like Google get a chance. So now Google is coming, and there was a stat I read somewhere that Google Chrome makes more money on Windows than Microsoft.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine your own platform? Somebody's coming to your house and making money of it. But then, tech has Satya Nadella, current CEO of Microsoft, has said tech doesn't respect old age. Because Google is out here eating Microsoft's lunch. And what happens? Facebook comes and starts eating Google's lunch with digital advertising. Google is, Facebook is winning, and guess what? TikTok comes, start running Facebook ad, and it's eating Facebook lunch. So in tech, the beauty of it is like there's also something called at-will employment, meaning I can be employed at company A on Monday, I can leave from company B. So you have this nice mix of talent that is rotating through, bringing talent from the universities, academia, research, and it's a nice virtual cycle. And whenever people have a great idea, they leave the company, they get some startup funding or VC backing, they create a startup, and they have a chance to grow into another big company. So it's this whole, some people will stay for a long time or forever. Some people will stay a couple of years. Mark Zuckerberg famously said that even in go build Facebook, and I've wanted to like work at Microsoft or something. So I think having that environment whereby, failure is not a bad thing. You can try. If it doesn't work, you have a good backup. You can go work on one of these companies. So I think it creates this really good ecosystem. I know you've heard of like Silicon Valley and all these things, but I think it's the fusion of venture capital, universities, research, and companies that are always hiring, so that people who have a great idea can go try it out. I'll give a great example. So Google invented the transformer, which is what kicked off this AI revolution. Google, being a big company, is a bit more like incremental and methodical about how they roll out new stuff, because you cannot kind of affect the core.
You can't cannibalize your old existing products.
Exactly. So what happens? The Google researchers leave and they go to OpenAI.
My God.
And they will create ChatGPT. ChatGPT is getting big and scaling and growing. Some people are not happy at what's going off. Some people leave, they create a company called Anthropic. Some people leave, they create Perplexity. Some people leave, they create SSI. So even right now, in the AI race that had just happened, these companies are splitting up from each other and creating kind of competitive. So it's creating this nice flywheel effect. And for me, as a proud Ghanaian and African, I'd love to see some African companies in this mix. This game so far is the West, a couple of French companies like Mistral, but Africa is nowhere in this.
Just give me a sense of how what kind of day it was when DeepSeek came up with their model, and we were told it cost like 100 the price of what the guys in your side were valuing their company. Just talk a bit about the kind of chaos it caused in your world.
Oh yeah, it was a jaw drop. I mean, before the market opened, you could see the indicators were trending down, and the market opened, it was a bloodbath. So for context, the stock market is a good indication of how Americans are feeling about companies. And so for folks who are listening, everybody knows hopefully ChatGPT, which was trained for like billions of dollars. And then there's this new company called DeepSeek from China who says it costs $6 million to train it. And it just changes the game. And NVIDIA, one of the big companies that's benefited from the AI revolution. So imagine they own the picks and shovel in the AI kind of revolution. They lose $600 billion of value in a day. Combined, with these big companies and NVIDIA, it's $1 trillion of value lost in a day, because the market is, weighing the additional or new information of what if models could be cheaply trained and we don't need all these GPU. All the investments we are making in, more GPU or more processing power, more data, are they at risk? So it was a very interesting kind of thing.
Obviously, so let's break that down for people. So I think what you're trying to say is generally to generate the level of insight that a ChatGPT will have, you need large processing power. Of course, that also needs a lot of electrical power. So usually the cost structure of these companies is very high because they invest a lot in power and also in these servers. And to have a company from China say, our app can do exactly what this guy is doing, and the price is just $6 million, or the cost of getting to it. I guess it even got people to think of whether these companies actually tell us the truth about their valuations, which is why it caused so much chaos.
Yes. But I mean, when you scratch, every story has two sides, they say. So when you scratch on the surface with DeepSeek, I think the early information that's coming out, they were trained on some NVIDIA chips. And funny enough, Shannon Friday, they were trained a bit on some open AI models. So I think that also helped them with the acceleration curve. So I think that's the beauty of technology. It's, dog eats dog and this virtual cycle. And what I love about it is that the end user benefits, meaning you and I can use ChatGPT, a free version. You can use DeepSeek, a free version. And I love how these kind of tools, open source versus closed source, they're all trying to see which one is sticking. And everyone who is wondering, how can I get or use this AI? Guess what? If you have Instagram or you have Facebook on your phone, the Facebook folks have put an AI in WhatsApp. So you can try it out. You just tap Meta AI and ask it any question.
Sometimes it pops up without you even asking it anything.
Exactly. It's kind of annoying, but I'd say that's the benefit of having distribution. But if you over abuse the distribution, the government could come and say, hey, buddy, you need to kind of slow down here.
Let's talk about Africa and Ghana. But before that, the kind of job you do, I suspect you are a very small minority in terms of the way you look like. So Ghana boy or African for that matter, working in Seattle. How diverse is tech and how challenging has it been to do so well with so few people looking like you?
I mean, that's a fantastic question. The numbers are quite abysmal. And I think sub 5% in most companies. And with all that is going on now, it's even going to become less. For me, the benefit that I had was growing up in Ghana. Everybody I saw looked like me. So I grew up, went to boarding school, and left, the shores of Ghana with very strong self-confidence. So even when somebody is being funny to me, my initial kind of thinking is, maybe they're having a bad day. I always assume good intent. I remember I told an ex-girlfriend of mine that, I don't see color, racism, whatever. I don't care. I'm from Africa. I just came here to make my money. So it kind of gives you this very naive approach. But then when you really understand the American story, you start getting more empathy for the African American experience. But to answer your question, Seattle is very white and very rainy. And being a minority, you just, you face your front and do your job. You're here, you go to work, you spend time with your family, you spend time with your Ghana boys or your friends or your group chat on the weekends, you grill and you chill. But I think being a minority in these companies that are creating immense wealth, there's this obligation to share. So that's something that I and my friends and my cohort really try well to do. Whenever there's a recruiting fair, we'll go. Because if we don't go, the recruiting booth will just be, 10 white people. But if we can, we go just to...
So you can also help, so that if there's somebody...
Exactly. And we can coach, we can mentor. When people hit me up on LinkedIn, it's hard, but I try my best to engage and reach out. And 3 years ago, it was getting a bit much where I couldn't control it all between work and the family. So I actually created a platform on Instagram and LinkedIn called On With Charles. Whereby I talk about careers, product management, and thriving as a way to give back. Because I'm coming up, I didn't see a lot of people that look like me. So now that I'm in these positions, having had this experience across companies like Netflix, Microsoft, and Amazon, I want to make sure that I can give back. That's also why I'm here too. So
I want to tell listeners that I've been on the his personal website. It's really good. I think he's somebody, if you're in tech or just basically in that space and you want somebody to bounce off ideas of, as much as he has time, he'll do it. It's a nice website. So go back there. Now, the thing, though, I wanted to get to with this question was, generally in Africa, we seem to be excluded from these kinds of things. So, for example, not a lot of major inventions in tech have come from here. Okay, that's point number one. Then point number two, we tend to be net users. So we are customers. We use the product. But there's a way in which that can also become an opportunity, because I'm told, for example, when it came to mobile, right, there was a whole thing about we didn't have a lot of legacy systems, so we didn't have many good phone lines. So mobile phones have really opened up the African market. So MTN is one of the best companies in the world because they understand mobile more than most. And now we have mobile money, which was pioneered in Kenya. Okay. So I want you to give me hope that even though we are not creating as much of the innovation in this space, the fact that we are in a fourth industrial revolution and this whole AI thing, that's one of the spin-offs, could be an opportunity for us to do what they call leapfrog development. So just talk to me a bit about where the optimism could come from in this world where we have so few in the space.
Yeah, I mean, two key points here. So number one, in addition to M-Pesa, one of the great inventions from this wonderful continent was cloud computing. So Amazon EC2 was created in Cape Town. by some engineers from Seattle who got tired of the weather, moved to Cape Town and built EC2 in Cape Town. So it's fantastic that cloud computing they were using was actually built in Africa.
Of course.
The world's richest man is an African man from South Africa, Elon Musk, who is creating all sorts of wonderful technology. So our African people are doing great things. I would say the first is people in diaspora coming home or spending more time here, helping see the ecosystem and also nurture the next generation of talent is key. One of my classmates, Perry Nelson, one of the smartest people I know in Lyceum, the guy chopped first from class 1 to JS3. We can talk about that later. He went to Google, had a fantastic career. He moved back and he's actually the head of engineering for Google AI in Ghana.
Correct.
So someone like Perry who's here is seeding the ecosystem. Once again, I'm there, I try and come home a lot, so trying to see that ecosystem. So I would say the next generation is a mix of homegrown talent, folks from diaspora mixing in that. So you think about the techs and the chassis and the academic cities. How do we creating these pathways and also leveraging these big companies for internships and employment, and also some of our local champions. So like companies like Haptel are doing some really cool stuff.
Yep.
And then in the tech ecosystem, there's all these meetups, NIT. So the ecosystem is there, and I think, specifically in Ghana, I think the government is one of the biggest employers or like funders. So finding a way or a scheme whereby government can really unlock this tech ecosystem. I imagine a future in the next 5, 10, 15 years whereby we have world-class companies that grew up in Africa or Ghana that are now playing on the international space. You think in Nigeria we have like Paystack and all these really cool companies that got acquired by Western companies. So I think we are slowly getting there. A company that gives me a lot of hope is Andela. So Andela's mission statement is one of the most compelling I've read in a long time. And our summary says, talent is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not.
Can you repeat that?
Talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. This
like
means there's a young lady in the North region in Ghana. There's a young man in Borno Hafo. There's somebody who has a very interesting or tough family situation, who is brilliant, who is a shark. Imagine a future whereby we can create opportunity for somebody like that. The best way is through education. Getting them in a place where they can get exposed to technology early in their career. And if they go, I'll use Presec as an example for now, they go to Presec and they do a Brilla.
Of course.
And they're done with Brilla. How do we make sure we put them in the right place so they can flourish? I think these kind of schemes really will help grow our tech ecosystem. And then also, when we think about how we are spending our tech dollars in this country, how do we make sure that we are, creating opportunities for these young tech companies in addition to like the foreign companies that come and play?
Let's stay with that, but I want to talk about opportunities for employment. So I was at the program a few weeks ago and they were talking about business service outsourcing, business process outsourcing. And we're talking about how now companies in various parts of the world have programmers based anywhere in the world. And they said Ghana is a good place because we are in the center of the world, we speak good English, and our programmers are solid. How should education change to take advantage of this? So if we know, for example, that there are people who are looking for coders or programmers in Africa, still a lot of our universities are very, I don't know how to put it, they are very structured in the way they train people. But the opportunities that are available globally, I feel like there could be a better way of churning out more talent who can still live in Ghana and do projects everywhere else. Can you talk a bit around that for me?
Sure, I'll answer that. I'll give you an additional story. So
Okay.
I would say, universities thinking of all these books, so Udemy's and all this existing MIT, Coursera work, and just creating a course where we are just following along and building projects. Because in tech, if you're a coder, GitHub is the main place. So having these projects you have make you competitive on the global edge. You want to make sure you finish university. If you did computer science, you can code and be world class. And the next is leveraging kind of government, industry to encourage these BPOs, business process outsourcers, to not just come to Ghana, but to anchor in these universities. So imagine a world whereby a BPO company from somewhere else is embedded not just at the tech, but at Kwabocho or Presec, giving these kids, these students, a chance to intern or work while they're in school. Imagine you're in university and you're doing a part-time job at a BPO. When I was in university, I was working part-time. So I think there's an opportunity to kind of create these co-location of companies with universities to give people an edge. And the other story I'll share is like, on my end, I mentioned, scaling is hard. So I actually have a personal assistant who lives in Ghana.
Oh, wow.
I've been working with her for over 2 years.
So you live in Seattle, your PA lives in Ghana?
Yep. I saw her for the first time last Sunday. I've never seen her for 2 years. We just talk on WhatsApp.
Wow.
Yeah, so I pay her via SendWave. We talk on WhatsApp and Google Docs, and that's it.
And what gets done?
What gets done?
This is 2025.
Exactly. So she's sitting in Ghana, chopping dollars, adjusted for inflation.
And probably
and she has another job too.
Maybe you are her part-time job.
I'm a side job. It's okay.
Wow.
But I think about, imagine a future where every national service graduate can be a virtual PA, making some cool couple of $100 a month because you speak good English, like you mentioned, is fluent in these digital tools, can use computers, Canva, social media editing. You really create these opportunities for yourself where you can go work on your passion project whilst you're getting this money to help sustain you. So that's just one of the many things. Another one is, I'm a proud Fanti man.
Of course.
I want my children to speak the language. I've tried all these different things. I haven't invented the LLM that will teach Fanti yet. So,
by the way, LLM is a large
language
model, which is something they use in AI.
So I went on Twitter. I found this guy, Tre. He teaches languages.
Tre?
Yes, I DM'd him as actually, boss, I'm in the West. My children need to speak their language. He's like, no problem. He gives me this lady, Bene, who is in Takrady. So every Saturday morning in my house, my children put iPad, Google Meet, and they do Fanti lessons. And their Fanti is becoming even better than mine. Because when I speak whatever broken Fanti, they are learning from
As Fanti.
What can Fanti, Papa?
Wow.
So it's just an example of somebody who's living in Takrady, who has a side gig teaching a language to someone in diaspora who's getting paid. So these digital stories, because WhatsApp is free, data is affordable-ish, we can create all these opportunities that we even think about. And that's just scratching the surface.
Listening to you, I think I can safely say that beyond government policy, educational system, I think the home is critical. Because you spoke about the house you grew up in, the house your wife grew up in. And I think a lot of times when we discuss how to change the country, we talk a lot about the hard parts of development, government policy. We have to make sure our teachers are working well. But I think the home is critical.
Absolutely. I mean, my dad, Peter, my mom, Gina, I spent the morning with them. Are fantastic. My dad is an engineer by training, so very rigid. My mom used to work at Ghana, where she's a businesswoman. She was always doing some moves, selling this, selling that. And my father says the two combinations, the kids are balanced. So I think, charity begins at home.
Yeah.
So to all the parents listening, what can you do? Read to your children every night. If your children are under like 10, statistics say if you read to your children every night, they'll be successful. That's all. Even 5 minutes, 10 minutes, read to your children. Whatever their curiosity is, nurture it. My boy likes trains. So every day I buy him trains. My girl likes all sorts of things. So I always just introduce different things. So just parents should be more involved and nurture what they're seeing from their kids. And if your kid comes and you have this image of lawyer or doctor or whatever, they want to do something different, try to understand the why. And try and guide them in a path where yes, they can pursue their passion and still have a degree that kind of like helps them to flourish. So government can do but so much, but I do believe that also starts with us. I'd love to see like other institutions, religious bodies create things like coding challenges or hackathons. So going back to the science and math quiz, imagine a future where we have Shark Tank Ghana. People are coming with different ideas and they're getting graded and they're getting quizzed, and we create this kind of thing where like entrepreneurship or business is fun. That way people can get a big person sees an idea that's interesting, they fund it and see what it goes. So I think there's this thing we as a society can do to kind of nurture ourselves, because if we are waiting for government to come and create the next generation of coders, we may wait for a long time. But if we are all saying, hey, let me at least start from home, and if you have the means, sponsor somebody, pay school fees, or if there's a coding academy or coding camp that your kid is going to, and you can say, hey, can I pay for 2 or 3 more people to attend? And then put the word out there that, hey, free slots, let somebody join. So there are little ways we can all kind of chip in to make sure that we are creating a future that has like equity and is accessible to all.
Finally, what's your plan for coming to give back? You've already started, and I know, but when I look at your path, I mean, Patrick Iwa was obviously at Microsoft a few decades before you. Started at Chess, he's doing very well. Fred Magbagon-Lurie is doing stuff at Academic City. You've had big opportunities. So are there people like you at your age group who also have visions of things like this, to come back, set up something, to transfer the learnings? Just, you don't need to see everything, but at least some sense of what the future could look like.
I mean, you can leave home, but home never leaves you. That's what I would say.
Nice.
We all have this kind of inherent kind of call to come home and do something.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be very honest. The longer I stay in the West, the more kind of financial security you get.
Mm-hmm.
There's a system that works, and you know what the end looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets a point whereby you have to start looking at the risk reward of like leaving what you know, what you're comfortable with,
Coming back
and
to
coming back home. And Patrick Awa is a very good friend of mine, and him and I have been talking for a while. Like, what he did was amazing,
Yeah.
right? But I would say, you know, beyond coming and creating a school, there are other ways you can come in and do things. So for me, I imagine the next couple of years being a bit more structured about my Ghana trips.
Okay.
Working with my PA to, you know, set up programs or functions where I rent a hall, we have some structure around it. Young people come, and then I can mentor them. Or, so for me, my mission in life is to unlock the potential of the next generation.
Thank
That's
you.
people and products. And the way I engage is that I do consulting for companies, I do public speaking for companies that I charge for. But for students, it's always free. So I can imagine a future where I'll come, work with a corporate body, do some program for them. And on the sidelines, I say, oh, I'd like to also co-host an event, bring young people in. They can also see the events, be on the sidelines and interact. So that's how I envision the next couple of years of being able to have an impact, consulting here, but also kind of creating access for young people to kind of see it. I went to NIT a couple of years back to do a public speech. And at the end, I asked the group for questions, and it was crickets. Bernard, like, everyone was quiet. The reason was like, oh, but Charles is a big man, Microsoft. How can I ask him a question? So this our shyness is a problem. I went to university, I couldn't ask question. And there's class participation as part of it. So I would say for us, like, we need to have that boldness. Like, I think Naja know to carry last.
Yeah.
It takes them far. So I would say a bit more boldness from our young people, and saying like it's okay to like be outspoken. You know, I want to see a bit more of that. But to summarize, as I'm coming to town in the next couple of years and months, I'll be a bit more structured. Heck, maybe I'll even invite you to come come to one of our programs so that people will come check us out.
Structure gets you the job. Storytelling brings the growth. I love that. Talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. These are two of the nuggets Charles Wartemberg reminded us of in this very interesting conversation we've had with him. We could talk all day, but hey, we have to pay other bills. So thanks for talking to us, Charles, who's I don't know where you are now, still with Netflix or where?
So
you are fluid.
So I'm a technology leader who is always curious about technology. But I'd say it's a pleasure to be here, Sir Bernard. I hope to come back in the future. And for folks who want to kind of check my stuff out, you can find me on LinkedIn. So Charles Wartemberg. And on Instagram, it's easier to find me. It is On With Charles.
Yeah, it's a bearded Ghanaian with a broad smile. You will not miss it because the name sounds esoteric. Charles, great talking to you. And that's time for today's edition of the City Business Edition. Thanks for listening. The City Breakfast Show continues.
This is the City Breakfast Show, the city's biggest conversation.